welcome back. Thank you for being here. Another video for you on some ideas, some new things, and some new older things. Thank you all again for being here. And if you like what you see, check the box, do the subscription situation, and you won't miss any videos to come. But again, appreciate you taking some time. Last time we were together, last video, one of the things I talked about was Smokin at the Half Note, the reissue that was done on the Verve series by Acoustic Sounds. Superior products, really good products. Smokin at the Half Note's one of those records, you know, I think I mentioned you all ought to have. It's a great record, and you know, it's done by the Wynton Kelly Trio, Wes Montgomery. I tend to say it's a Wes Montgomery record, only because Wes is so amazingly good on that record that I just think it's a Wes Montgomery record. But technically it's a Wynton Kelly Trio with Wes Montgomery. So there are, I think, 5 cuts on there. They're all good. It might be 6. There's also another 5 or 6 cuts that did not make that record. I think I mentioned in the last video this. You could write a book on this recording session. It's very convoluted, the way it was issued and not issued, and what was there and what wasn't included, and how it was recorded, where it was recorded. There's a lot of drama. But there are cuts available in that session that were reissued on a CD, 2 CD set called Impressions, the Verve Jazz series on Verve Records. I've got a US copy, which actually sounds quite good, and I have a Japanese copy with the obi here on the side that also sounds really good. But I would really recommend you picking this up either on eBay or through Discogs, or if you see it in a record store somewhere used. They're not expensive, but there's cuts on here that were not on Smokin at the Half Note, and they're great. They're wonderful. Why they didn't do a 2-record set, I have no idea. That's on disc 2. On disc 1 are selected tunes from other Wes Montgomery Verve records that were, you know, produced by Creed Taylor. Creed Taylor, in my opinion, like I said, got a little commercial, but there were also, you know, if there were 8 cuts on one of Wes's Verve records that Creed did, there was probably 1 or 2 that were really, really good, and they incorporated those on disc 1 of this 2 CD set called the Verve Years. You might recognize some of the names. West Coast Blues, kind of a Wes Montgomery standard. Caravan Duke with a big band. Great players in this band. Clark Terry, Ernie Royal, Snooky Young, Jimmy Cleveland. Man, what players. Quentin Jackson, Jerome Richardson, just a great backup band. I think that Oliver Nelson might have done the arrangements on this. I'm not sure. And then 2 other tunes from that era, not necessarily on the same record, but Twisted Blues, Golden Earrings, Naptown Blues. That's an Oliver Nelson record, recording arrangement. Sorry. Danny Bank is on that. Danny Moore, Mel Lewis, Thad Jones band guy. Joe Newman, Ernie Royal, Basie, alumni. Jimmy Cleveland, again, Quentin Jackson. Phil Woods is on this. Jerry Dodgens on this. Danny Bank again. Herbie Hancock plays really well on this. So if you like to hear Herbie Hancock in a setting that you can't picture Herbie Hancock in, and he plays really well, or on some of these Wes Montgomery Verve records. And then Sundown, great tune. Milestones, the Miles Davis tune, Around Midnight, Mellow Mood. And then there's some Jimmy Smith and Wes Montgomery. 1 or 2 trios, and then a couple things that they did with their larger orchestras, and I think again Oliver Nelson did the arrangements on there. Road Song, a couple cuts from there. I believe that was Wes's last record, Road Song on Verve. Wes died rather young. He worked like crazy. He actually held 3 jobs down while he was playing in Indianapolis because he had a large family and had to support that. A lot of these jazz guys, they didn't make a living, 100% living playing jazz. They had to add other things. And J.J. Johnson, I think he reviewed blueprints. He was an engineer during the day and would play in clubs at night. How they did that, I have no idea. There's a couple forwards here. Gunther Schiller wrote some great words. Jimmy Cobb wrote some great words. Pat Metheny wrote some great words in here. Metheny made a comment, I'll read. I don't like reading, but I'm going to read you this. If I can, it's pretty small. After Miles Coltrane came along, drummers and bass players are kind of messing with things. A lot of guitar players weren't up to the challenge of the modern rhythm section. Wes was. Guitar always lagged the other instruments in that respect, but Wes's thing was so advanced rhythmically. He kind of played like a drummer himself. Pat just loved Wes Montgomery, and as he should. He credited Smokin at the Half Note for being the record that he really learned to play guitar on. He just ate that up, and that's what he did. Wes was such an influence. But these 2 CDs are well worth having if you want to add to your Wes Montgomery library. They're well worth picking up, and they're relatively inexpensive. That's the Verve Years, Impressions. Alternate, I guess you could call them alternate takes on Smokin at the Half Note, and some really good cuts from Wes's Verve stuff. Here's a record I found. I can't remember when, but it was a few months ago. I just listened to it. It's a record of the Montgomery brothers plus 5 others. It's Buddy Montgomery, who is Wes's brother, obviously, on vibes and piano. Wes on guitar, Monk Montgomery on Fender bass. It wasn't just electric bass, it was Fender electric bass. Then a couple players that I don't know, who were Midwestern tenor player, 2 tenor players, piano player, and a drummer, who Wes knew from Indianapolis and Ohio and that area. But what's interesting on this is Freddie Hubbard's on this record. I think it's Freddie's first recorded side. If you know anything, folks, are you listening to this? If I'm wrong, tell me. I think it is. And Freddie plays really good on this. This is done in 1958, remember, so these guys are really young. And this is on the World Pacific Jazz label. There's a good, nice, clean copy I found. It's a Dick Bach production, of course, on World Pacific, recorded in California and released in 1958. Somebody bought this for $4.99 someday. What a bargain. The Montgomery brothers and 5 others on Pacific Jazz. And again, it's worth having just for Freddie on here too, as well as Wes. It's kind of a historic record, I think. So let's move out of Wes just for a couple minutes and just talk about a couple of things here that I'd like to tell you about. If you don't have these records, I highly recommend them. Mel Lewis and Friends. Think about a rhythm section of Hank Jones, Ron Carter, and Mel Lewis. Think about that. Well, it's on this record, on the A&M Horizon label. Came out in the mid to late 70s, with a very, very young Michael Brecker on this, a young Greg Herbert, good tenor player. I don't know quite what he's doing these days, but he worked with the Mel Lewis Thad Jones band. Remember, he was really, really tall. He'd stand up and he'd almost hit his head in the Vanguard. when he was standing up to solo. But the fourth member, tenor saxophonist Mike Brecker, is not as widely known, and this is also true of trumpeter Cecil Bridgewater, good player, and saxophonist Gregory Herbert. Mel Lewis and Friends. But again, Hank Jones, Ron Carter, and Freddie. This is some of Freddie's best playing. It's incredible playing. A couple of Thad Jones tunes, a couple of jazz standards. There's like 5 tunes. They stretch out quite a bit. On the A&M Horizon label, recorded good quality recording, good sounding, well mixed and well mastered recording. Late 70s, A&M Horizon, Mel Lewis, Thad Jones, Mel Lewis and Friends. Some tunes by Thad, but not Thad Jones. Yeah, let's talk about this too. You know, those of us in the vinyl community, I don't think we talk about Keith Jarrett enough. I don't know why, but I don't see too many discussions on Jarrett. Jarrett's a monster. Jarrett had been recording on ECM for many years, these solo concerts, and decided he wanted to do some trios. It was a surprise when I think he called Jack DeJohnette and Gary Peacock to form this trio of playing standards, not Keith Jarrett tunes, standard tunes. This is the record called Standards 1. I found a nice, clean German ECM pressing. ECM is releasing a lot of stuff coming up here in the next year or two, and I hope they release a lot of this Jarrett stuff. It'd be great to have. I'd love to hear the Chick Corea piano improvisations, 1 or 2, on a really good vinyl, a quiet vinyl. If you guys from ECM are listening, stuff's good. Anyhow, all standards, all the things you are, the kind of tunes. God bless the child. But Jarrett is a monster. What a great player, tasty player. So if you can find these in good shape, pick them up. There's a number of trio records that Jarrett made, and I have a lot of them, and they're all good. The Blue Note set, man, it's worth having. This is the CD. It's not out on vinyl. UCM vinyl. Superior, back recorded in the early 90s. But there's so much. These Keith Jarrett standards, I think, are very underrated, because I think people get into the Keith Jarrett solo stuff, which is phenomenal, and I have a lot of that too. But these standard standard records are very underrated. And if you can find them, check them out or stream them. I think you'll like them enough to buy them. 2 new records, but they're old records. When I was a kid, I used to have this record. It's one of the first 50 jazz records I think I ever owned. Boss Tenor by Gene Ammons on Prestige. 2 Gene Ammons records have recently been shipped, and I think you can still buy them today. They're going to go out of print again pretty quick. They're done by Analog Productions, and of course by Kraft Records, in conjunction with Kraft Records. Boss Tenor. This was done in the early 60s. I believe it might have been 1960, with Tommy Flanagan, Doug Watkins on bass, and Arthur Taylor on drums. Talk about a rhythm section. With Gene Ammons, Ray Barretto on conga. I'm not nuts on congas on records. It's okay. On this, it's not too bad. Very, very clean, super sounding recording. Gene Ammons is very underrated. I think we get into the Lester Young, Coleman Hawkins type thing, and we don't listen to people like Gene Ammons and Don Byas and Ike Quebec and some of these other great players. Jimmy Heath, maybe not enough. But Ammons, he is, and they say it right here on the record. This is not me saying it, but it's said so correctly. He is a cross between Lester Young, that big fat sound, and the airy sound that Lester Young had. Hawkins had that big sound, and Young had good sound, but it was a little more airy, a little more earthy. But man, does Gene Ammons play great on this record. It's not heavy jazz, it's just kind of laid back, soul sounding jazz. Just gorgeous. Great recording, super recording. Thank you, Analog Productions. But pick this up. It's going to go out of print again, and it's going to be a while before it's back. But it's one of the classic records I think that have ever been done. In that vein, there's also another one out, same thing, Kraft, with Analog Productions. But this was on the old Moodsville, green and white Moodsville label. And this is called The Soulful Mood of Gene Ammons. It's an interesting cover. Compare to the two covers. Read into it what you want, but they're only 2 years apart, but extremely different. They both sound good. Rhythm section is a little bit different. On this record, there's a pianist, a young lady, who I don't know anything about, but she plays really nice. Patty Brown, or B-O-W-N, Patty Bone, probably, on piano. Just play some nice laid-back changes. George DeVivier, who's done everything there is to do on bass. And Ed Shaughnessy on drums. Putting Ed Shaughnessy and Gene Ammons together, I was a little skeptical, but Ed plays really good on this. You think Ed Shaughnessy, he was the drummer at the Tonight Show for a while, kind of a big band drummer. Did some nice small groups too, but Ed Shaughnessy and Gene Ammons. Interesting. Other than the fact that they both lived in the same area and it was easy to get to Van Gelders to do this. Anyhow, great, two great records, all standard tunes, recorded extremely well, very, very quiet vinyl, RTI pressing in LA. Anyhow, that's about it for today. Gene Ammons, check him out, and check out that Wes Montgomery stuff. That CD, that two CD compilation of the Verve sessions are just amazing. Freddie on Mel Lewis, Keith Jarrett trio, and of course, don't forget don't forget the Wes Montgomery stuff. It's so influential in terms of Pat Metheny and Pat Martino, and the great guitarists that have come after Wes. Anyhow, thank you all for being here. We'll check you out again probably in about a week. Any ideas? Drop a comment. And again, subscribe and check the like box and all of that. But let me know if you have any ideas on anything you'd like me to talk about. And until next time, we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.